They'd rather set the house on fire, lie to your face, rewrite history mid-sentence, just to avoid two simple words: "I'm sorry." Sound familiar? You know who I mean. That one person who makes everything your fault. You've probably met them. Maybe you were raised by one, or even work for one. It's the kind of person who will not admit fault. This isn't a personality quirk. It's a full-body defense strategy, wired by trauma, power, brain chemistry, and fear. And to understand it, you have to go back, way back, into history for the signs. So, if you've ever walked away from a conversation thinking, "Wait, how did I become the villain?" This video's for you. Let me show you how deep this goes, starting with Japan's God Emperor himself. Emperor Hirohito during World War II performed a reality-bending hallucination Naruto's Madara would have been proud of. As Japan's symbolic leader, he was raised to believe he was divine, a descendant from the sun goddess Amaterasu. But for years, Hirohito remained silent as war crimes mounted and defeat became inevitable. Admitting error wasn't just political suicide, it would shatter an identity fused with moral perfection. Psychologically, this is called identity fusion, when belief and self become indistinguishable. To admit wrongdoing isn't to revise an opinion, it's to self-destruct. Pair that with the biological wiring of shame orientation, where "I made a mistake" becomes "I am a mistake," and you get someone who will endure ruin before remorse. Studies show that people with high shame sensitivity often exhibit increased amygdala reactivity, which detects criticism as a threat. Hirohito didn't just stay quiet, he needed the silence to survive. His first admission came only after surrender. "I swallow my tears," he said, "and bear the burden of the past." By then, it was far too late. Testosterone doesn't just make you aggressive, it makes you allergic to being wrong, especially when you're being watched. In 1941, Hitler launched Operation Barbarossa, invading the Soviet Union. Stalin had been warned over and over, by his own generals, by foreign intelligence. But Stalin refused to believe it because believing it meant he'd been duped by the man he trusted least. According to historian Stephen Kotkin, Stalin responded to the invasion with paralysis. He simply stopped speaking. Not for an hour, for days. Why? Because for dominance-obsessed leaders, being wrong equals losing control. And in high testosterone individuals, being subordinate or corrected activates biological threat responses. In experimental studies, men with spiked testosterone were significantly less likely to take advice, even when proven wrong. So rather than recalibrate, Stalin purged his military, executed those who warned him, and nearly cost the USSR its survival. King Henry VIII didn't just have wives. He had scapegoats. Catherine of Aragon wouldn't give him a son. She was discarded. Anne Boleyn had a miscarriage. She was beheaded for treason. He invented cancel culture, only he did it with an axe. Henry's identity wasn't just royal, it was fragile, and fragile egos don't tolerate ambiguity. They crave certainty, control, and devotion. Being wrong, even in love, felt like betrayal. Neurologically, this maps to high cortisol levels, the stress hormone, which fuels threat detection and defensiveness. In tandem with an overactive amygdala, it creates what psychologists call defensive reality bending, the ability to rewrite truth to escape inner collapse. No ghosting for Henry, only beheadings. He didn't just fear being unloved, he feared being unworthy and being seen as a liar, because in his world, truth was whatever didn't hurt his pride. You see this same pattern today, on Twitter threads, in boardrooms, at the dinner table. People who mistake accountability for humiliation. Most aren't evil, they're just wired to believe being wrong equals being unloved. And that wiring, it's installed in childhood, especially for those raised under conditional love, harsh punishment, or shame-heavy parenting. So you're not arguing with logic, you're arguing with trauma, dressed as confidence. And that means, in order to feel safe, they'll burn the bridge just to stay on the shore. So how do you deal with someone who won't admit fault? Most of the time, it's someone you're emotionally vested in. I tried confronting someone like this once, and I'll bet you know what happened. full meltdown. But when I tried a few of these mind hacks, boom, whole conversation shifted. So here's what works. 1. Looping empathy. You repeat back their argument in emotionally validating terms until they feel fully heard. You say something like, "Let me make sure I got this right. You felt blindsided and just wanted clarity, not blame." That matters. People stuck in defensive denial often escalate until they feel understood. Once that's achieved, they soften. 2. Ask meta-level questions. Ask questions about the conversation itself, not just the content. Many people resist fault because they link it to shame or status loss. So when you say, "What do you think is really getting in the way of us resolving this?" you force a mental pivot without accusing them directly. This nudges the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for reflection, into gear. 3. Show the cost, quietly. People are more likely to change when they see the consequences reflected back, rather than being told they're wrong. Make an observation like, "I noticed the team seemed a bit quiet after that meeting. Think they felt heard?" Let consequences speak louder than accusations. 4. Don't fight the story, outgrow it. Emotionally rigid people often trap others in spirals. Stepping outside the story renders their power play irrelevant. Try saying, "You may be right. Either way, I'm focused on fixing it." Refuse to be baited by their ego trap. You lead by detachment. This isn't about winning. You don't win these moments by proving you're right. You win by disarming the internal war they're having with themselves, without stepping into the blast zone. Influence, not victory, is the goal. So remember, people don't always cling to being right because they're strong. They do it because deep down, they're terrified they're not enough if they're wrong. And when you understand that, you don't need their apology. You just don't let them rewrite your history. And if you like this dive into human psychology through history, please consider liking and subscribing for more videos like this. Thanks for watching Historic Psychology, and I'll see you on the next one.